Inside Improv with Stacey Halal, Joe Bill, Elise Rodriguez, and special guests Biddy Kemery and Stacey Smith.
It is a Friday. That means it's Inside Improv. How is it Friday again? I don't know about you, but my life is going by very fast. But I am so excited about today's guests. And also this will be our we're going to take a break next week. So we'll have 2 weeks. We'll see what that feels like between shows. But I'm very excited. First, before we bring on our amazing guests, I'm going to bring on Joe Bill. Hi, my co-host and lifelong friend. Hi.
Hello, host and lifelong friend. We have twice. I have Stacey in stereo today, and I'm so excited.
There's gonna be more Stacey than anybody can handle, but I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, my strategy today is mostly just shut the fuck up.
That's your strategy usually on the show, isn't it?
It kind of is, but I mean, I'm doubling down. I have double shut the fuck up in my head today. So
That's right. Amazing. Well, let's bring on Elise Rodriguez. Hello.
Hey, I've written a lot of shut the fuck up checks in my life.
Yeah.
Wow. Bob.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy. I'm very happy today.
Good.
It's just going to be so exciting.
Well, then let's not make anybody wait any longer. Let's bring on our guests, Biddy Kemery and Stacey Smith from Amsterdam. Represent Boom Chicago. Hi.
We showed up out of nowhere. This is the better version of Brady Bunch.
Isn't it? I wouldn't it be cool if we could pass things, like really pass things, though, not just even fake. I just want to,
I don't know.
Yeah. But I can give you a little, here's a heart to you, Stacey. Ready?
Thank you.
It's just threw it away. Did you see that? She took it. She was like, thank you. And then tossed it
to someone else.
I see. Okay.
Joe, anytime that Stacey Halal talks, Joe and I are going to go like this.
Here's a story.
Amazing. Well, we're obviously like beyond ourselves excited to have you both here because we already know and love you. Biddy, I don't know you as well. I'm so excited to get to know you because if you know these people, do you know Elise and Joe? Have you all met before?
I know Joe.
Okay, so this is
we're actually best friends. We grew up together.
Here's the one thing I will say today is when I met Biddy at Boom Chicago, we sat in the bar and we started talking, and for a second, I just forgot that we had just met because I just remember we just started talking like we've known each other forever,
yeah.
And then immediately the fact that this was the first time we met, it went away. That's my contribution. Have a nice show.
I remember when we did the show at Boom Chicago, we did Shot of Improv, and there was this one moment where I think like we came off a scene together or something like that, and you just leaned in and you were like, that was rad. And I was like, instead of just being like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I leaned in like you were my best friend, and we had just done what we had like planned to do all summer and saved up for it. And I was like, yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Just so easy.
So easy.
That was rad.
It's been very. That was
rad. It's weird because it's almost like these two have a similar relationship as you and Elise. So sometimes you find that handful of people where all of a sudden it's like you've been doing this the whole time, and that was the case, I think.
Stacey
and that
Smith
show was totally rad. Yeah.
Tom Bensel says hello, Stacey Smith.
Tom Bensel.
Yeah. Long time fan. Yeah, here, put it up there. So there, watch, you can see it. Look at that.
Everything is like this. This is the
amazing.
I don't even feel like I deserve this future. This is too much for me. I love it.
Will Loera.
Double.
Come on now. Come on. Will, we've already been talking about you and how much we love you even while we were getting ready. So know that you're
So
in
we
our
won't
hearts
talk about
always.
you anymore. Goodbye.
No.
I will.
All right. Well, Stacey, let's start with you. You're originally from Long Island. And how'd you come to improv?
So I grew up doing theater, and I grew up doing musical theater, believe it or not. But actually did musical theater and never was a singing role, because I didn't realize I liked to sing until later. I just liked to be big characters. And I went to school for theater, went to university, and my senior year of university, the woman who I worked work study at this small 90-seat black box theater that was in a beautiful little barn in Long Island in Patchogue. And she had told me to go to the Second City and gave me a pamphlet and was like, you should go here for an intensive. And she gave it to me in November, and I booked a flight and went in January for 10 days. And I took a 1-week immersion in improv and writing and never looked back.
Amazing. What school? What is that town? Herzog?
Yes, it's Werner Herzog. It's Patchogue.
Patchogue. What university is there?
I went to Pace University in Manhattan, and then I transferred once I was like, oh, I don't want a degree in theater, I'll never have a job, and went for speech and theater and music at St. Joseph's College.
Wow.
St. Joe's.
That scene of the brochure is so out of a movie. It's here, go here, and then you see the brochure.
Yeah.
And it was a nun, and I went to a school that was in the Catholic tradition. It was not a religious school, but it had started as a Montessori or Catholic school, and then transitioned into a college. So the woman who ran the theater was this insane nun.
Huh. You know what? I got to say, I have loved the nuns I have met in my life. I'm going to say, I know many people have had horrific experiences, but yes, I've met some wild nuns. So you went to Chicago, you did this intensive, and then what was your next step from there? Because you went back to Long Island.
Yeah, I went back to Long Island. I did the intensive in January, met Shantir Jackson, who's still my best friend. I met her. We looked at each other. We immediately fell in friendship love, and we were like, let's do this for the rest of our lives. And then I went home, waitressed my ass off, and I was so bad at it. Really good at talking to the tables, and then never remembered to put food in.
That was my problem too.
And then I moved there that October and took classes at Second City. I was in the IFA program, the Improv for Actors program, and I did IO, and I did the Music Conservatory and Annoyance. I did everything all at the same time, like a crazy person.
So did I. Yeah. I am that other crazy person.
That's I was like, if I'm here, I'm going to do absolutely everything in the world. And I did. And I saw shows 7 nights a week. And I nannied and worked at a preschool during the day. That was infuriating and disgusting. And
you must have been so tired.
Oh, I was exhausted. I had a shift that was 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then I would go to classes and then stay for shows. Yeah, it was insanity. But luckily I only had to do it for a few years, and then I started doing ships and gigging and stuff, all the good stuff.
Great. And when you say ships, you mean Second City ships?
Yeah, the Second
cruises.
City ships.
Fantastic. And then how'd you end up at Boom?
So,
shout out, John G.
John. Hi, John. I like that hunger. Ooh, I love when he compliments me. I love him so much. He's my hero. So I was touring through Europe. So I am like Joe Bill's daughter, and he was like, go travel the world, do the things that I do. And so I was touring throughout Europe, teaching musical improv the past few years. And I taught someone connected me with Sasha, who's our music director here at Boom. And I went and taught a musical improv workshop for the cast of Boom Chicago maybe 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And Biddy was in the cast, and the two English Simons. It was Simon Fielder's first week in the cast, and Tamer and Sine and Reese. It was a lovely group. And I played in some shows and then kept in touch with everyone, came back a year later because I was touring through the Netherlands teaching, guested in some shows, and Andrew was in the audience, and Tamer had just said she was leaving, and they asked me to join. And I called Matt from Amsterdam and said, do you want to move to Amsterdam? And he said, fuck yeah. And then we moved.
Awesome.
It all happened very quickly.
And now, Biddy, did you two meet before that? You've known each other since before that, or did you just meet?
Yeah,
okay.
no, we met when she did the workshop for us, and she came actually on like a pretty bad day, and then literally turned it all, like, we were in like the depths of a show process. So we were up at like, we were probably up at like 10 a.m. every day, and then at the theater straight away. And then we'd leave the theater at around like 3 a.m. after just like writing and workshopping and improvising all day to put a new show up. And it was like probably like a horrible day. We were just like not getting along. Everything was tough. We just like wanted to kill each other. And then Stacey was like, you guys want to do a workshop? And we were like, no, no, fuck this. And she's like, it's musical. And
then I'm like, I've got a pencil up my butt.
And we were like, I want to kill you. But then, like, like obviously 5 minutes into the workshop with Stacey, we all were like madly in love with her, and we're having so much fun and completely forgot about where we were in show process. So it was just like,
just what you needed.
Great. That was the first time we met. And then a year later, Stacey was like, I'm visiting. Do you want to get brunch with me and the other girl in the cast, Tamer? So we had brunch, and then Tamer was like, I'm leaving. And I was like, Stacey, Tamer's leaving. I can't say anything, but Stacey, here, come on, good.
That's awesome.
So many friends.
It's so great. Hi. And Biddy, we have so many people watching who we love. Hello, Gael, and John G,
love Gael.
Tom. Biddy, how did you end up in Amsterdam at Boom?
In Amsterdam at Boom. I was improvising in London.
Oh, wow.
Sort of. Basically, like, I started improvising in LA, and then I met a man, and he stole my heart. So then, yeah, boo. And I went to London for him, and then I started picking up. I did a tiny bit of improv in LA, and then in London I was like, I just was like diving all in, and I was doing improv there, and the guy who ran the Free Association there at the time is a Boom alum, and he saw me perform, and I was like sneaky performing and stuff in London because I was on a tourist visa, and so you technically weren't allowed to be even performing, because if the show made money, that was illegal. Right. You couldn't even volunteer. So I was actually back in the States bartending and hating my life, just waiting to save up enough money to go back to London to be with that guy and continue things. And I got I got a call from this guy at the Free Association, and he was just like, hey, they're doing auditions for Boom Chicago. I need you to get on a flight in 2 weeks. And I was like, I don't have any money. And he was just like, well,
said every improviser.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So my sister lent me the money, and I went back and I auditioned, and then I came to Boom.
Amazing. Awesome. And now you really both are have brought all of your do it all at once energy to Boom, where you're cast members, you're administrators of the Academy for Stacey, and Biddy, you're the stage manager, assistant director, and there's a festival that you're putting together. So that's I mean, here's the thing about Boom. I don't know if everyone really fully understands that for you two to have this much responsibility on top of being cast members is tremendous because Boom really works you. Like it is.
Yeah, it's too much.
Girl, I'll tell you what. Since I got to Boom, it was like I've been wearing a hat on a hat and a hat, and I was like, it doesn't work in a scene, it doesn't work in real life. But it's like so hard. What you have to do at Boom as well is like you have to be able to be a host, a teacher, a performer, and a musical performer, and all these other things. So admin on top of that is nuts. And I, for the first like 2 years or so when I was at Boom, I was kind of the only one doing anything on the admin side. That's not to say that the other cast members were also doing tons of stuff. They do corporate work, they teach, they're doing all these things. And then I had like another layer on top of that until Stacey showed up. And then finally, and we were living together when she first came here as well. So it was just constantly like Stacey just pulling up to my doorway being like, hey, this is hard, right? And me being like, someone who gets it.
This is hard, right?
And I'd be like, yes. And then we just have a glass of wine and sleep.
Well, and at Curious, we've been looking at all different kinds of pay models, and we're in a smaller market where people aren't necessarily trying to be professional. So it's not coming from the cast. It's just coming from the equity issue that's hard to ignore and shouldn't be ignored. So the Boom model is something that we've considered, and even with Kristen, we were talking. Kristen Shear, my co-artistic director, we're like, what if everybody did some admin, and everybody? I was like, gosh, how do you hire for that once you get your first team together, right? And you're like, oh, we lost this person who is our musical performer, our strongest musical person, and our festival coordinator. Like, how do you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when they lose us, they're done.
Real talk.
I gotta
right
say,
there.
like all of that kind of, I know that it's definitely stressful, and I've yet to be in that kind of position. But that sounds to me like someone like me would love that, because it sounds like you would never be bored, right? Like I also have a sick love of admin and a sick love of performance, so that's a little weird. But I feel like it sounds dynamic enough where at least you're never kind of like, oh, I'm kind of doing the same shit over and over again. Not to take away from how stressful it must be.
Yeah, a lot of the administrative stuff like that Biddy and I do is also very creative. So like for me, kind of teaching and doing this full time before I had come here, for me, it's like, what are the things that I can now do to challenge myself to step up the game, to make sure that I leave this place better than I found it, to build community, to do these things. So for me, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, because I want to be creative. We're doing 6 shows a week, and they're the same shows a week. So it's really, really nice to have something that kind of is different then. Because Biddy gets to make all of the running orders for the cast and manage all of the corporate clients and all, so we get like we get to be involved in it a little bit more, which I think I find fascinating. I love the training center job. This is now my 3rd training center role, and I like eat, sleep, and breathe curriculum. So for me, it is definitely hard to juggle all the things because there are so few people at Boom. But it's totally worth it at the end of the day, as exhausted as you are.
Well, and I think it's the kind of like grueling schedule that also takes people who are already powerhouses and just makes them absolutely unstoppable. You're doing corporate gigs in all these different venues. You're playing for international audiences. You're doing it there aren't that many places you can do 6 shows a week. Like, I'm curious, I would love us to have, my original business plan had us with 6 shows, 6 nights a week. We do 13 shows a week, but the main ones are crammed in the weekends, right? Like, you can't get people in. So can we talk a little bit about, and just to follow myself up on like, and that's why, Boom has produced some of my favorite people in the, not produced, but have come from Boom. So you two and Jordan Peel and like that. I mean, the list is tremendous of people who've been through Boom. Amber Ruffin, we were talking about while we were getting started, one of my favorites. Ike Barinholtz, Seth Meyers went through Boom. Like, and those bonds that you create there because you're in these trenches together. Yeah. And for better or for worse, you can have a bad day.
It's nice to be in the small cast. Like, you so very rarely get to do that. Like, in Chicago, I was part of the Deltones and Musical Armando, and we had like a rotating cast of like 20 or 30 of us. But to work with 4 other people constantly all the time, you have one of 2 options. You don't get along or you do get along. And we're super, super lucky that the 5 of us are all super, super close. Like, we hit the cast jackpot of like us really just kind of bonding together really easily. So it is really nice because I've been on ship casts that were not that way, and then you live underwater with them.
Oh my God.
It's not fun.
That's
not fun. That's right. And that's what I was going to say. When Biddy, you're talking about having a bad day, it's like, yeah, well, you still have to come and do this really intimate and vulnerable process together. No matter what.
Oh, poor Stacey. I just imagine you looking out. You're just like, oh, I wish I could just get away, and turning to like the small little window and a fish going by.
Like,
I had a porthole, and it was like this big, and it was only for like perching up and singing songs about sadness.
Oh,
so awful.
I would like to know what a typical day in the ship life is like. I watch Below Deck by Bravo, so this is going to be
hilarious.
This is very important to me. So what is what's
so
the typical day like for you on the boat?
It depends on, are you single or are you in a relationship? Are you an alcoholic or are you not? Those are the categories.
It sounds like a joke, but it's not. From everything, it's not.
It's not.
I mean, we were doing 15 shows a week on the ship that I was on. And, every Sunday is 4,000 new passengers. It's like Groundhog's Day. But you can you always have 2 options. You can either make the most of it or let it literally devour you. And, if you band together with all the different entertainers on the ship and go out on excursions and make the best of it, then it's freaking awesome. But it is definitely a learning curve of like, oh God, this is the real world. Like literally the MTV show, The Real World.
My friends who did the ships, like they would either come back like in the greatest shape of their life, super tan, ready to take on the world, or just broken,
be lost.
Yeah. It's a test.
Well, it's hard to not feel like you're going to be forgotten. Like, it's 4 months and the scenes move so quickly, especially in Chicago, of like the turnover of casts of this. So for those 4 months, even though you're hired by like one of the biggest comedy theaters in the world, you're like, well, what is happening in these 4 months? Are they casting this? Are they casting that? And you're still thinking about it, even though you're like making the most money doing comedy you'll ever make, and then it's over and you'll never have it again.
I'm so glad you said that. I was just having a conversation with an improviser friend of mine about the importance of making your own name in improv and not being attached to a theater because of exactly what you're saying. And in the sense that, like, if you're attached to a theater, then it's just means so much more to be within that theater, and it's almost like losing sight. Like, our ego takes over just a little bit, like what's going on at this theater, because this is like my space and I need to protect that space, versus no, I'm fucking Stacey Smith, like I go wherever the fuck I want.
Yeah, but it's interesting because the only time people really want to attach you to a theater is if they want to market you for something that is popular for their theater. So like if it was interesting for them to be like Stacey Smith from Second City, then they would market me as that. If they wanted to highlight musical improv, they would be like Stacey from IO Theater. So it just kind of depended on what they were hiring me for to see where they'd brand me. But it was really nice when it was finally like Stace Jam, and it was just me.
Smith, yeah.
Awesome. Well, and speaking of that, word on the street, Stacey, is that you've been a big part in helping Boom open up to the city of Amsterdam and the larger scene, because it is, I think, very natural for people to be like, this is my place and that's that place. Yeah. And we fall into an us and them mentality without trying. I see it happen over and over again. So was that, like, I guess I have two questions. Was that your stated goal? Like, were you intentionally wanting to open Boom up? And two, what were some of the things you've done to help Boom be more connected?
Yeah, so I think because I had known people both at Boom Chicago and like at Easy Laughs, which is one of the other big English speaking comedy entities here, because I had known Yoka Meyer and a few other folks from festivals. So I kind of knew that there was like 2 or 3 things happening. And I had never experienced that in Chicago, because it's like you could go anywhere at any given moment and do an improv show for 3 rats and a woman named Deb. But
Deb, I miss her.
Deb, she's always at the Underground Lounge. But it was very clear that I was going to come into a scenario that felt very similar to how I felt in Boston, that there was kind of like 2 theaters, and I was always so frustrated by the fact that, like, you are never going to be a good theater unless you have a little of everything. It's the same thing I tell my students, like, you're a good improviser if you know a little about a lot. It's the kind of the same way for any training center. It's like you want the people to perform at your theater to have a wealth of knowledge from multiple training centers. Like, you don't want them to just know this one thing. And our training centers are really different. So I did know a lot of people, and I had known people from festivals that were like, I'm glad you're here. This is kind of the lowdown and how we feel. We kind of feel stuck in the middle. We don't really have a place to play. We don't really know what to do. So I had like a little bit of an inside scoop at the same time. And I didn't know that I would take over the training center. But, you know, when you just know, because it's just natural when you've been in leadership positions to, you know, if you're a Virgo, want that always. So
fall into that, yeah.
And Biddy helped me get the training center job because it was just a class coordinator position. It was just someone who was scheduling the classes. And they had hired someone, poor woman was hired for like 24 hours. And then Biddy called Andrew and was like, Stacey has a wealth of, she's run 2 training centers. Why are you hiring someone that's just a class coordinator? This could be a huge thing, because we were partnered with the Free Association in London. And they're remarkable, and they have a brilliant curriculum. But we were training our students to do things that we were not doing on our stage. So and that was so evident from teaching right away, of like, we're teaching the Herald, but we don't do the Herald. And we teach this, but we don't do that. We do sketch comedy that has improv games in it, and then we do a lot of short form, and then we do a little bit of long form. That's also changed a bit in the last year and a half, because Biddy and I have been running community shows, and we've been trying to get more long form. But so it was just kind of clear immediately what the community was like wanting. And after the first session of teaching, I was like, oh, it's really clear what they are drawn to or what they like in shows and stuff like that. So as soon as I started running the training center, I started programming community nights. So every Sunday after our long form show, which is the show that is most attended by our students, then we would have community shows. So we had a rotating monthly show. So it would be a Boom Chicago open mic, stand-up based, which we teach stand-up as an elective, but Matt's in the cast and Simon's in the cast, and they're both stand-up comedians. So we wanted to implement that a little bit more, because we do have stand-up based things in our shows. We had a musical improv night, because you're not, you know, come on. We had an independent night. Biddy created and coached the very first Herald team that we ever had at Boom Chicago. So we had an independent night that they kind of hosted, and then we had an academy jam. So we would kind of create different forms and then have students do 2-person scenes with the cast members. So like a really safe jam format where they were protected and felt really confident, and everyone got a mandatory standing ovation, and, you know, like all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. So, and we saw like I felt it immediately. I knew we all did, that this was the thing that we needed and that we were missing. And Andrew, our boss, he's very willing to be convinced. Like, one of the greatest traits he has is he's like, convince me, and then like put it out in writing, show me, and then we'll do it. And so it didn't take a lot of convincing. I was like, we're doing community nights. This is what we're doing. And I showed him kind of a new curriculum that we just launched in January, but have not taught yet because we closed.
Right.
But we're doing kind of a core program of 3 intro levels, and then you could go a long form track or a short form track. And then we have extra electives.
Great.
So something that is more geared to what we actually do in our theater, which is super, super exciting.
That's great. Kristen Shear will love that, because we've been, we tried to mix the two in the curriculum, and it just doesn't give either enough time.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating now teaching so many different curriculums, because they teach at Second City. A through E is a lot of hand holding.
Yep.
IO is like level 1, week 7, you're doing a Herald. It's like sink or swim, babies. Here's long form. So, and then Improv Boston was kind of a mixture, felt like a mixture of the two, because we do all forms. So you need to have a huge understanding of short form to heighten your long form. So I think that people are really split in our community of what they're drawn to. They like kind of everything. So we're trying to offer them as many tools as we can in both directions.
That's great. Yeah, when we didn't do any short form for the first 5 years. We were all long form. And I came up through long form and had only done really comedy sports for short form. Yeah. And I love comedy sports, but it wasn't really till I saw some theater sports, like at Dad's and at Dad's Garage, at SAC Comedy Lab, at Rapid Fire at Edmonton, where I was like, oh, this has as much of like the story that I love combined with the short form. And we were at the point where we were losing $3,000 a month, trying to be a long form theater. And so it was a real tough transition, because a lot of people didn't want to do short form.
Which is ridiculous, and I will fight everyone to the end of the earth.
I agree.
Short form is 100% necessary for all improvisation. It's how you find the game of any scene. People are like, it's cheap, it's hokey. It's like, no, it's not. It's just a long form scene cut shorter. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm going to speak very frankly. When you watch a long form team do a montage, what are they doing other than a short form show that is a series of open scenes?
Yeah.
I went to
you have to say something, because I know you want to.
I'm going to say it. It's just short form. If you're not telling any kind of long story, if you're not calling anything back, if there's no thread, even if I don't even need a lot for it to become long form, right? I just need the littlest, tiniest bit of a thread. But if it's not, it might as well be. And that's okay. That's all great. And short form, like being at comedy sports, it's super accessible. Like being able to perform for all ages and have something that they can recognize very quickly, I think is remarkable. I love short form. And then Joe wants to say something so bad. I saw him open his, Go ahead, Joe.
A lovely Muppet mouth. He goes like 3 times. Go.
That's what I do. It's up. Because with short form, you're stopping and starting, and you're introducing the proposition to the audience, which is paid money to laugh. And each proposition is different package that has a parachute on it called Even Failing is Funny. And then you're on to the next thing. So, but if you're going to do it, like, what's a herald? What's long form? What, like, an audience has to understand what the hell they're watching. Yeah. And they don't have the benefit of the spoken context before the piece happens. And so you have to stay open and pay rent. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And we do a ton of long form. And there were audience members as well who loved us. And I mean, we did survive that first 5 years, but they were sad when we started doing short form and not as much long form. And I know Will Loera, we talked about, changing what you do and the audience needing to come along for the ride and enduring that transition. But then
I will.
Thank you, Will.
Just Will. That was just from earlier. That's John Tim doing our tech. Being a genius. A
goodness.
callback from John doing the tech right there.
So this is long form.
Yeah,
This is long form. Now it's long form. Woo! But so we started doing short form, and then we would go. The first time we went back to a long form for a holiday show, I remember people who were really uneasy about short form leaning over to me and be like, "I really miss Showdown," which is our short form show, because the pace is just so exciting and the audience is just so into it, and you can draw bigger. It's a different feeling than when we do like Shakespeare in our small theater, and it's longer and it's just a whole
short
different
form
feel.
teaches you to put on your director's hat as any part of the cast. Like for me, short form reminds me of polish. It reminds me of keeping a streamlined show. It makes me more professional, especially if you focus on honing that, right? It's not like you just, we're going to do short form. We're going to putz around and be annoying, awkward hosts. Like, no, we're going to actually work on this and polish it as a product, right? As something that we're making money off of.
Well, and that's what
I think I like hosting more than I like improvising.
Me too.
I love
hosting so much.
I love hosting. Joe was the first person to make the connection between my last name and my sort of life's conflict, which is the right way. My last name means the right way. And my dad didn't have an accent, but he would say, imitating someone who had an accent, who told my sister, like, this is what it means, the right way. So my dad would always say, the halal way. It's the right way, the halal way. So what short form does for me is it reminds me to shut that voice the fuck up and to have fun and not overthink it. And it was Joe who one day were like at some festival in some hotel room and smoking in and Joe's like, he picks up the ashtray. This is the moment, Joe going, And you know that there is no such thing, right? That's the moment. Mind blown. It's like, I know, but I don't know. Yeah. So somebody asked, Tom asked if the audience is English speaking. You perform in English at Boom. Is that correct? That's still the case?
Yeah, we perform in English, but we have international audiences.
Yes. But they understand that they're going to be there to hear a show in English and understand it at whatever. Awesome. Now, Biddy, you were talking about the process. What is the process like creating a Boom show?
It is incredible and grueling at the same time. It is a beast I've never encountered before in my entire life. I've never experienced anything like it. I've done a couple of show processes now at Boom, but it's just constant for a really short amount of time. And
how long is it? Like at Second City, it's like 12 weeks to create a show. How long is it at Boom?
12 weeks. It depends. Like we did a show once where we wrote it in 2 months and then it was up. And that's actually really short for us. And then I think typically a show process is about 4 months. So we start like January, February-ish, and then it premieres at the end of May, early June. Kind of thing. And we basically just, sometimes it depends. Like Boom has so many different approaches to writing processes. So I've been in a couple of them now, where we often have the concept of the show given to us, and then they say, we want this concept, write it. And so we go, okay, great. What do we know about this? And we try and start putting some things together. We throw ideas together and we write a ton of sketches, and most of them don't make it into the show. And
what's an example of a concept you've been given in the past, or that one might be given?
Okay, so one of the shows that we did that was very much given to us, and I'd like to make that clear, is The Future is Here, and it's slightly annoying. And that was the name of the show, and the concept was futuristic technology and how much more about it we know than you. Which was also just not true.
Black Mirror.
So it's very difficult to make. Yeah, exactly. It was like Black Mirror, essentially. It was like a show, Black Mirror, but like Black Mirror knew more than we did. So it was just like, it was such a grueling process, that one specifically. But there's some that we, like, we're doing a show now called Sitcom, and that was a dream to be gifted, like, especially with our cast, because our cast is like, it just has enough of the dry sarcasm of the English people, and then the wackadoo of like Stacey and Matt, like put together is just so much fun to talk about the 90s.
And then Biddy holds us all together.
Oh, just straight up. I'm just like, you guys, come on, we both are, let's do this.
So it's a cast of 5? Is it always 5?
Yeah, it's always 5.
It didn't used to be, though. In the 90s, it was quite a big cast, and they had certain people doing corporates, certain people doing main cast shows. It would be a lot easier if there were more than 5.
And they would rotate in and out.
They would rotate, and sometimes they would kind of like compete for a spot. It was like a competition almost to compete for a spot in the cast. It was like, if you're doing well, you were successful, you were going to be in the show that week or something like that. You were having a hot streak. I think you would come back for it. That's the rumor, but yeah, it was like 14 plus people back in the day. It's also when Boom used to be in this like tiny little theater called it was on Leidseplein. It was I think it was I forget what the space is called, but it was on the Leidseplein, which is a touristy spot. So they had a much smaller theater, much less rent, tons of foot traffic, tons of expats, tons of people who wanted to go and see shows. So it was just like they hit the jackpot with all this, which is why they eventually expanded to where we are now, which is the Rosa Gracht. And that's where we are now.
I feel like you just spit on me. And not even because of the word, because of the face you made while you did it. It felt very aggressive.
I think it's aggressive. Thoroughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Philly.
How many spaces have there been?
2.
So this is the second one?
Yeah, and we're in like
this is the second one.
Big, historic, beautiful. I mean, the
Gorgeous.
space is like stained glass windows, an incredible zal that fits, I think, 300 something, and our upstairs theater is like 100. And then I just somehow over a gin and tonic convinced them to build an attic space that we're going to open in the next month. That we'll do more stuff in the attic. So now we have three theaters. Amazing.
So that must be the theater I went to. I thought you had moved since then. It's been a while that Boom's been.
We've been on the Rosenkrantz for 7 years, and then Leidseplein before that.
Yeah. Okay, then I was at the old one, and there was like a dinner. Like there were long tables at the one that I was in. That went up. So that was the first space, Joe.
That was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Well, I guess I need to come back. That's for sure.
Yes, please.
So then how long does a show run? Once it's up, how long of a life does it have?
A year. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we take so much time kind of on the show process. Like literally work every single day from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. working on the show.
You're freezing a bit, and it's super funny, the poses that you've fallen into.
Very cute. Look at that. That's her new headshot. Even cuter. Oh, they just keep getting cuter.
I'm so sick of you all.
It's just like John Gavritatios, the only one who could freeze like on all beautiful shots like that.
Yeah. Like the sexiest 70s detective
Yours
ever.
just kept getting cuter and sweeter.
Yeah.
Wait, is he still here? Is that John Tim?
That would was that from earlier? Yeah, it was from earlier. That's a John Tim.
Oh, come on, John.
Yeah, he still watch it, I think.
Commented.
Yeah. He said he needs a good vocal warm-up for someone who mumbles when they talk. You know, it's like my friend has no respect for the language communication verbally. This guy is all mumble. Again, asking for a friend, of course.
I love you so much. And I also feel like it's like a slow, scary knock at many mumbling mice. Oh, he's here. Okay, good.
You know, that's what he does when we're getting ready to do our podcast. He'll go, many mumbling mice, and he stops. He leaves it alone. Yeah. He doesn't even go in there.
Well, you have to
cool
do that.
He is.
So would the recommendation be, if you know a vocal warm-up, to actually complete it if you want it to be effective?
Yes.
Is that
the only way to be effective is to fully come to completion, John.
Amazing. So back to Boom. I find like I have such admiration for people who can do a show that many times a week for that long. I assistant directed a main stage show with a great cast. It was a great show at Second City. It was between Barack and A Hard Place. So it had Amber and Bryant, but like, I couldn't watch it anymore. Like, I just was like, this is, but I also wasn't on stage. So granted, I wasn't.
We do have a lot of improv in our shows. And I think that's what keeps it really fresh for us. And also we kind of go through a process throughout that if there are things that are getting stale or we want something kind of new in, then we can kind of put stuff in and stuff. So it can change a little bit, based on how we're feeling, which is nice.
Great. That's great. And Boom's
how tired of waiting for tonight do you think that J-Lo is? That's the first thing I thought. She just stands there with like a smoldering look over and over again over decades of time. Waiting for tonight. It's the same thing over and over again. It's a bop every time.
Now, Boom was one of the first and still probably one of the only places I know, improv theaters, that has had a full-time video person. Is that still a thing there? It did for a long time. Do you have a video production
Technician.
person? Not somebody shooting sketches and videos? That was way back in the day.
That would be great. We'd love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Emil couldn't do that.
Yeah, Emil
he can do
brilliant,
anything.
One of the most brilliant humans ever. And Simon Fielder in our cast is also quite talented videographer and makes videos. So we do make video sketches every once in a while, but we're also like very busy.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes harder to do those types of things. But we did film stuff for sitcom. Like we have a Baywatch parody that's called Canal Watch, and my sweet fiance is on a boat in the canal with a Speedo on, and it's the greatest.
It's really great. And I literally wrote that sketch just based on the fact that it's Baywatch but canal. And we had no concept for it, but we just went out one day and like we were like, hey, we want to film the sketch and your boat's pretty big. And the guy was like, yeah, hop on. And so we just like got on the boat and filmed the sketch, and it's just me, Matt, and our cast member Simon in these Baywatch outfits, like looking over the canals. And then people are like, they just see Canal Watch go across and they're like, oh, that's it. It's because it's canal, but Baywatch.
Yeah, that's easy as that.
Amazing. So for Boom, if you audition, you get hired, you make enough money to live from all these things that keep you busy?
Great question.
Yeah.
And then is there any kind of like rent subsidy or place provided, or you pay for your rent like any resident would from your earnings?
Yeah, we pay for our rent. Different people are on different contracts, and some people like Biddy's salary for Boom because she's an administrative role. So everyone kind of has a little bit different contract because we've also been here different amounts of time, and then we get raises based on how much time and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different across the board, but there are 2 Boom houses, and half of us live in one and half of us live in the other. We do pay rent, but we do, yeah. I'll show you pay stubs, John.
We want pay stubs, all of us.
Yeah, I love that Biddy provided them with improv
pay stub.
object work. We're working on it, Elise. We're working.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I do think things have changed a lot over the years of Boom Chicago because of the Dutch government and what their friendship treaty is with different countries. Because the last 5 years they've cast a lot of people out of the UK from the Free Association because they were partnered with them, whereas they had gone from the States for such a long time. My scenario was much different because I got hired from a show, and same with my fiance Matt doing a show with me while he was here, got hired. So that kind of happened that way. But I do think it is kind of different because we are self-employed, so we each have our own Dutch business, and it's never the same each month, of what comes in. We have our regular shows, we get paid separately for teaching, and then we get paid separate for all the corporate work that we do. So it kind of changes month to month. Obviously, the last year, we've, just been paying rent to live in the Netherlands because we were completely closed and not really, we were doing a lot of live streamed corporate events, but for a while there was just no work at all, and we are contracted on our own because there used to be a ruling that if you work at Boom for a certain number of years, then you in the Netherlands, then that business is like responsible for you forever. Or there's like some weird law.
If you work in the same position and you don't get any more money, like you have the same pay and the same position for 4 years or more, then you're locked in as a permanent employee.
Wow.
So they stopped doing that. So that they could have turnover. Yeah.
Or that's so interesting. Like tenure. It's kind of like a tenure thing.
Kind of. Yeah.
Interesting.
The Dutch government is very fascinating.
Everything is very much like the employee focus. So it's all the rights are reserved for the employee. All the focus is on that and protecting you in your job.
Yeah, it's like having actors' equity and not having to deal with actors' equity.
Right, because the actual government is doing that on your behalf.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is nice. Yeah. That's very nice.
Another
so basically,
cool thing
you're saying you're not in Florida, right? You're confirming you're not in Florida.
Oregon's the most that way.
Yeah.
Oregon's one of 2 states that's the most that way, and like our minimum wage has been working its way up, but ruled to be $15 an hour. Years ago, a couple of years ago. It's been a long time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we have to pay. So that's a big problem for us, and also figuring out how to pay people. Because if it were a theater where we had a contract for a show, we could get away, although it's still gray area with paying people as contractors. But because improv's like ongoing, same people all the time, we have to pay their taxes and all that stuff. So, and workers' comp.
Yeah, I think they learned the hard way. And also it's interesting because, what we're finding now, since we've been on the Rosengracht, which is really remarkable space, is that we're relearning to reach the local Amsterdam audience for our shows, because we have been a tourist attraction for so long, and we really are trying to build more programming, like Dutch programming, and having, we're kind of a producer's theater, so people rent our space. We put up famous stand-up comedians. We kind of have a lot of hats at our theater, but we're a non-subsidized theater, so we do get screwed a lot on some of the grant money and stuff like that. So it is really interesting and fascinating. And also, like, it's been a theater for 27 years, so it's done something right. It still exists.
So how many, so you do your show 6 nights a week, and then like if a stand-up is coming and wants to rent the space, does that bump a show, or does it have to work around your show?
It depends. Yeah, sometimes it depends. Since we have 2 theaters, we can perform in the upstairs theater during a stand-up. It depends on how many tickets we think they're going to sell.
So it usually just changes the capacity.
If it's like a sellout, then we'll go upstairs.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you've planned it long enough in advance that you just know you're going to sell the smaller capacity of tickets to your show, and then they get the big show. That's cool. There's all these things.
Yeah, we have a pretty good feel for it, especially depending on the person.
Who's some of the stand-ups that have come through to Boom? Do you remember?
You've seen a ton of them,
a lot.
Biddy. And famous
Yeah,
drag queens too.
I'm obsessed with drag culture. I'm very, very, very much a part of it. I love it so much. So I've seen a ton. Like Vanjie came, Cameron Michaels came, but yeah, Eric Andre I saw him last year, completely naked on the Boom Chicago stage. That was really fun. His penis.
Listen, in Improv Boston, I didn't know that this was real. I was
Naked
at happy
stand-up?
hour. Yeah, I was at happy hour with Will, and he was like, "You want to go see Naked Stand-Up?" I'm like,
No.
"What?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah."
Making it
We
more
went,
scary.
and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're naked.
Cool."
Yeah, and then here we have
real.
one where they strip. So they do their set and then they have to do a strip tease as well. And they
Okay. I used to see that at Annoyance, the, what was that called? Skinprov.
Improv and Titbits before at the burlesque show.
Yeah, exactly.
Tidbits?
And we
or
and we have
tidbits.
Tidbits and Skinprov.
We have
Okay.
a rental each week of a male like Magic Mike show with like all these international sexy men dancers that we all sneak into after our late night show
Oh,
and
yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
It's called Hen-Do's, which is a bachelorette party. I never heard it be called a Hen-Do until I moved here. But it's like
Oh, a hen
crazy.
do.
Yeah. Hen-Do.
I'm going to ask about the festival in a second, but first, I think John is making a great point too, where he's thinking that schools should talk about making a living in comedy. That we are comedians, we are writers, actors, admin, HR, teach, repair the theater space, social media, and more. Which I do think like. I think this is for everything, even for music. I bet you've seen this, Stacey, where like musicians will come in and do their piano piece or whatever, and then walk off. And there's like, don't teach them stage presence. And a lot of introverts are great musicians, but don't learn how to do that. And another obstacle to paying people is that they don't have their own websites. I can pay stand-ups more easily because they market themselves as a stand-up outside of our space. But when people are just home, like this is my hometown and I just do this for fun, they're not going to build their own website or any of that. Do you two is that something you have done? Is that something you did a long time ago or only recently?
Yeah, I built a website like the year I started classes, and I had no right. I had nothing on there. It was like literally a picture my friend had taken of me next to a tree. Like there was just nothing there. But it was someone had said it to me really early on because I had every free workshop at Second City about producing or anything. I had taken everything. And I do tell my level 1 students, like, if you want to improvise, then there are also other things that you'll want to know. Because I really think that producing helped my improv career a ton because it was like a built-in networking opportunity, but I also was able to learn how to treat performers and to program something that is interesting and unique and diverse and give people the opportunity to be on stage. And so it is fascinating that, how many people just make a living doing just improv, like 2,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, and also teaching, like I started teaching very early because I was like, I'm not making money improvising. I started teaching at Second City in the youth and teen program as soon as I could give them my resume and be like, I have tons of experience with kids and teaching, dramatic improv and stuff like that with teens. And then, so I kind of got in that way, but yeah, you have to wear a lot of hats to make it in non-stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. How about you, Biddy? have you had a website or promoted yourself in that way?
No. I feel like I'm also very fresh too. I think I'm much younger than Stacey when it comes to improv, and so I think, and performing in general, really Boom is like when I really first started performing. I was performing a little bit in London before that, but really not much. And so then coming here was like my first being really thrown into it. And so I've learned a lot in that sense of it's lucky because Boom also sort of sells you. They kind of act as our managers, and so they have good connections, and they promote us around the city for different gigs, and that's really nice. It gives us a lot of exposure. But I think, like Stacey said, anything in life, there's balance, and just having the one thing that I really appreciate, especially after a global pandemic with Boom, is that the people who run the theater are constantly trying to think of new ways that they can keep the theater in like the main street news. Yeah. Like they literally like, okay, so this person is doing this. How can we collaborate with them? They're very, very on top of like, let's go. We got to try new things and expand our theater and do this. It's not just, it's an improv show and the classes and let's hit autopilot. Like, how they're constantly putting their feelers out for how we can collaborate.
You have to after 27 years. Otherwise, what are you going to get a reviewer to write? They've seen, they've been to your theater for 27 years.
Yeah.
What is going to be the news making thing or the next big thing that you're going to kind of, we were doing live streamed shows from our theater, Just the Actors, in April, a month after we locked down, where we had a quarantine film crew, and Matt and I did a 2-person short form show for 3 nights that we live streamed all over the world. It was like one of the first, like hybrid events that we were actually in a theater live streaming it. Like they're always like, innovation. How do we do this? That's always. Like The Future Is Here was the first show that I came for and started, I took over Tamer's roles and we improvised with a robot, with an AI. And I was like, I would never do this in my entire life. And this robot's singing a musical improv song with me right now. What is this life? But it's because you have to find that next interesting thing to keep something that has been around for a very long time kind of current.
Yeah, it's also just like the heart of improv. Like what we teach in our classes is that like improv can be applied into your everyday life. At our corporates, we talk about it too. Like it'll help you with your communication skills. It'll help you with listening. It'll help you with creativity. And so we literally take that very seriously, and we hunt for options to insert ourselves everywhere, and not just with like improv shows, but for example, like this morning I had a meeting with a Dutch motivational speaker, and he was like, I want to bring my stories to life, and so collaborate with this motivational speaker to put on a show where it's going to be more serious improv and emotional and really, really, really like that yum long form goodness that we get, but with this like incredible Dutch motivational speaker who's like super popular. And then what ends up happening is we end up at these gigs where we're like an hour before we're finding out what we're doing, and we're like, what now? But it works.
But you have to be a group of people who are like, okay, like I'm ready to try. It's so great
to be.
And I love that example you gave of like just the fact that you met Stacey during a tough time with your ensemble, and Stacey coming in became a team building event as much as it was a great thing. I don't think as improvisers we use our own skills. Like, we had 9 brick and mortar theaters here in Portland at one point, and there was like a lot of tension between, and I was like, hey, can we just like start with some improv exercises? And everyone was like, no. And I was like, this is what? Why wouldn't we use our own skill sets? Which is amazing. Great. Well, let's talk about I just did want to add to Stacey, what you were talking about is like the external benefits of constantly innovating, like Biddy was describing, but also it's why Boom is a 27-year-old theater that isn't blowing up right now with internal strife and drama, as far as I know. But I mean, we've seen all these.
Stacey hasn't left yet, so we don't know yet.
You better stay there. They can't survive without you. But yeah, it's like 25 years. I think, Biddy, you said it, and I just wanted to reiterate it. So many people are like, here's the business model. We've got the classes, we've got this path to the stage, we've got these shows, and then they don't touch it. And because
it's got to change, it's got to evolve, just like the art form, just like the just like the people, just like the culture, like it just has to constantly be changing.
Yeah.
Like we have to put in exercises now that make our students feel more safe and comfortable to have the space to be vulnerable. And it constantly needs to change. Like to have the same curriculum for longer than a year, I think is gross. Like you just have to keep, and curriculum is living and breathing. Like for me, and I tell my instructors this, like, as long as you come out of level 1 and they know this, this, and this, I do have a curriculum, but also live your dreams. Every class needs something different. If there's a group of people that aren't able to do this exercise for whatever reason of that group dynamic, who cares? Do something else. Do whatever is going to work with them, as long as they get out of that level and they understand, concept A, B, and C. So we have to always have that flexibility. We have to be as improvisers, as instructors, so that we can make sure to tend to our community as much as we can.
Every single meeting that we have with our boss goes exactly like this. Hey, Andrew, what do you think about this? And he's like, convince me. And then after like 10 minutes of trying to convince, he goes, yes. So we're not only just the theater that does improv, but we improv on a helicopter.
I'm pretty good, Andrew.
We're the only one.
That's a really great Andrew.
That's the plan to beat.
That's amazing.
That's the plan to beat.
Well, so now speaking of improv on a helicopter, tell us about the improv festival that you are working on.
On a helicopter.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, so I
take me with you, John Gavitatios.
But there is a very famous international improv festival in Amsterdam called Improv Amsterdam that is all long form based. It brings all of the best groups all over. Biddy and I got to see some shows last year, and I got to jump in with Joe for a show. Super fun. So we wanted to do something that was a bit different, because obviously we don't want to touch something that already exists. We want to do something. So it's kind of has this fringe festival feel to it because it's a comedy festival. So it's not an improv festival. So we have stand-up, we have sketch comedy, we have musical comedy, we have 2 incredible drag events. We have like a drag brunch, and we have like a RuPaul's Snatch Game show with some local drag queens and improvisers mixed together. Yeah,
that's awesome. And that's a chance for them to practice should they get on RuPaul's Drag Race, right? Get your skills built up.
Exactly. So and then there's workshops all during the week from all these wonderful guests that are coming in a bunch of different, like, amazing, like we have improvised Coen brothers and premise scene masterclass and dramatic improv. And so we have some festival guests coming over. Shantira Jackson, my very best friend in the whole entire world. And Heather Ann Campbell, who's a writer for Rick and Morty, is also coming over. And then to me, the coolest part that I'm like super nerding out about is every single day of the festival, we have a live streamed Q&A. So we're hosting it live from our theater with guests that are not there. But we have Seth Meyers and Jordan Peele and Kate Cannon and Josh Myers and Ike Barinholtz and Brendan Hunt. And they're all, and Colton Dunn, and they're all, we're hosting it live. Saskia and Andrew are 2 owners of the theater. Pep Rosenfeld and myself, we're going to host all of the Q&As, and we're going to nerd out about Amsterdam times and improv journeys and make, these people that have made a living in it more accessible for people all over the world, because those will be live streamed. So you can either watch it in the studio audience or watch it wherever you are. And so it's a little bit of everything, which was a fascinating learning experience because I've worked on Chicago Improv Festival, Chicago Teen Comedy Festival, Chicago Sketch Comedy Festival, and then I ran my musical improv festival. So improv festivals I understood, and then you add in sketch comedy and stand up, and you no longer understand.
Right. What's the difference?
So it's been
what makes it different? Like in terms of the productions, on the production side of it?
Well, because then if you're adding sketch comedy, you're adding technical aspects that you don't necessarily have for the improv ones. When you add stand-up, it becomes sometimes tougher personality of of just the worlds of like, this is what I demand and expect, that you don't realize that obviously everyone should get, and then you're an improviser and you're like, why am I improvising? I should do stand-up instead.
You can talk to me
Look at
anytime.
Stacey Halal's I know face.
Yeah,
Stacey Halal's face.
You know,
when
of
you're
the
talking
9
is
years of a mainly stand-up All Jane Comedy Festival, and it's a and you have like, there's a different beast to schedule a team than that would take up 20 minutes versus 7 stand-ups that would fill that same period of time. Yeah. So it's, and the order means a lot, and
exactly, the host means a lot, the energy and the variety and the flow of the show. So it was a lot more really having to figure out the variety of each. We're doing it as showcases, so every show is a showcase. So it's kind of like the 4 Corners of America showcase, where there's 4 groups from America from the 4 corners. So we titled everything, kind of looked at every single show. What is the through line for this show that is marketable and interesting for this show? So it was a huge learning curve for me, even after producing like a shit ton of things. So it's been, and then working with an actual team, like that was the craziest thing. I ran it at IO. I was like, Sharna, can I run a festival? She's like, I don't care, baby, do whatever you want. So I just like, basically, the box office staff and the bar staff is already there. She just gave me the 2 spaces and was like, you have them these days, program whatever. Now I have a marketing team, a salesperson, a building manager, a caterer. Like it is so much bigger than I had ever imagined. But it's super exciting. And then Arjen Lubach, who's is like essentially the John Oliver of the Netherlands. He's quite famous. He's in our festival, which is huge for the Dutch community. And he's doing a reunion show with his Dutch improv team, Upsterkwaarder. And that sold out in like literally 30 minutes. Like,
when is this happening?
July 24th to August 1st.
Amazing. And is Amsterdam open now? Is everybody doing okay? Doors are open, capacities are full, or what?
So we reopen officially next week, and we have a capacity of 50. And then July 1st, we have a capacity of 150, and then 50 in our smaller space, because we're able to do a 1.5 in our bigger space for 150 people, if you can believe it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we were doing great for a really long time in the Netherlands, and then we stopped doing great. And we were not vaccinating anyone at all, and it was terrible. And now that they've started, it's kind of now underway. But we are pretty much open now. We're in like phase 2 of our phase 3 opening. So
great. So your festival will still be pristine. You don't have to. Great. Yeah. Well, awesome. Joe and Elise, think of if there are any other questions you have, and Biddy and Stacey, if there's anything. But you go ahead, Elise. I'll ask my last
Biddy,
one.
When is your birthday? Like, what is your birthday?
The day of my birth is the 1st of March.
The 1st of March. Thank you.
Elise is our resident astrologist, so she's probably already assessed what she thinks you are based on how you have behaved, and apparently she can tell by people's facial structure as well.
Yeah.
Wait, so
can you tell me?
I was Virgo
can you give me the information?
I always tell everyone.
Yeah, was it in line with what you were thinking, Elise?
Yes, but I imagine that she has a female Taurus really close to her life too, because she kind of looks a little like a Taurus woman.
What is Taurus?
Taurus is like April late, like
Joe is a Taurus.
April 20th, which is my birthday, through May 19th, 20th.
My older sisters are the most important people in my life, and they're twins, and they're May 2nd.
It's really weird, isn't it? It's crazy.
Day after me.
Do I look like a Virgo woman? Do I look like I have wrinkle lines from my obsessive compulsive disorder?
Yeah.
But
Well,
Stacey, I've known you're Virgo for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the first things you asked me as well.
I don't know. I think you assessed me. So, I mean, here's the beautiful thing about both of you, amongst many, many beautiful things. But the one that's on my mind right now is the tempting part to me about following that idea Kristen suggested of having an ensemble that also runs the theater is that based on what you were saying, Stacey, it was making me think about it of like, the more you've produced, the better you are, I think, as a cast member, too, because you have an understanding of how fucking annoying it is when no one can, like, shut up or remember, or when people ask you 1,000 times for something, you've provided documents that remind them, right? You learn how to be responsible for yourself in a way that makes your producer's life easier, which actually makes you more marketable as a person to work with, because people are going to hire someone who's a pleasure to work with, right? And vice versa. I think you two are just so brilliant and wonderful and lovely as administrators because you're performers and teachers. And so you understand what makes an environment that is conducive for everybody to thrive. You know, so
this is the most love I've gotten in a very long time.
We are like beside ourselves.
We can't handle this. But it also, like, you know, and Biddy and I talk about this all the time. And the reason we like immediately were magnets to each other was we wanted to have strong voice, you know, as being the two women and then having three men who are all unfortunately very lovely. But like we wanted to make sure that we put our stamp on making sure that we were leaders in this community and that we were able to give people a voice. And so that's always been one of our missions immediately, and why we do duo shows and curate duos and force people to be duos to perform in our shows, just because there's so many interesting people that don't know each other because our scene is small and continuously growing. But we like kind of do shows where we produce where we're like, hey, like super veteran easy laughs person, do a show with this like 6-month-old improviser. They're not 6 months. They're not babies. You know what I mean? They're babies. They're improv babies. But like we try to produce things like that and a lot of variety shows. We do a lot of variety shows to just like give everyone kind of a taste of like, what is your comedic voice? You could do stand-up, you could do storytelling, you could read an essay, you could just cry openly for 5 minutes, Stacey. You could, you know, whatever you want to do. We want you to kind of find your voice, because I think that was very important for Biddy and I, both in our journeys to find our voice. And then once we did, that's what made us feel, you know, confident and excited to do things.
And I'm really excited.
Definitely. I think that was one of the first, like one of the main things coming in here was like, yeah, you're going to be in the cast and you're also going to be managing the cast. So Stacey has talked a lot about what we do for the community, which has been so fulfilling. The community has blown my freaking mind. But also, like, a lot of my job is managing our direct cast. And for us, a lot of the people that come over, it's their first professional job in comedy. So at first I was kind of like, hey, don't do that. Oh, you hate me? Great. I hate myself. Okay, this is horrible. But now I've turned, I feel like that was like new mom Biddy. And now like I'm so passionate about like Boom and what we do here. And the silver lining of my job is that I get to take care of the actors, and I've seen it as that as an opportunity. I love them, and I want to take care of them in their new job, and I'm more comfortable with that. So now I'm just kind of like, you hate me, and then I'm like, go do your homework. You hate me, but that's fine. You're gonna thank me in 20 years.
Yeah.
No, she's Tiger Mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just been so nice. And I just have to say on the record, like, it's also just been so nice, like having Stacey here and like learning so much, because I am newer to it all. And having someone join in the administration, and I was trying to find my voice, and she's helped me. All of the women at Boom have helped me find my voice tenfold, in particular. And Stacey, especially with like how you can run a theater. So there was the missing link between Boom and the community, and I wanted it. As soon as I got here, I'm talking to people. I talked to like people I knew, and I was trying to make that happen. It was just so hard to make it stick. And seeing that link, like I grew up in an improv community where you don't talk to your teachers, like they don't have time for you kind of thing. And that's just how I was raised. And I didn't understand. Stacey was like, I'm going to do a show with one of my students. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, I love them and it would be fun. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
That's what I'm saying about when Stacey moved to Sarasota, and I saw the way that she was with the people in Sarasota. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to go to dinner with one of the students. And this student is in her 80s, and she knows all about this woman's life. And I was like, yes, we're humans. Like, what the fuck do we think we are? We're improv teachers. Yeah, I teach you zip, zap, zop. Like, I'm real special. Like, we're human. Yeah. Like, all of us are human.
But I think that's also, I had Joe as a teacher, and it completely changed my life. Like, and it was at a time where I was like doing way too much at once. And he was like, oh, just peel this banana. It's just this. And I was like, what? Jesus Christ. But he unlocked so much for me. And the one thing that he showed me that I think was really, really valuable is that we are humans. Like even like, especially when I played with him on Deltones, they welcomed me so quickly, and I was so intimidated and I was terrified, but it was my dream to be on the Deltones. And everyone was just like, yeah, what'd you do before the show? And I was like, you care about, oh God. But for me, like one thing that I've tried to tap into a lot is like, and all of you know this, but like I'm an open book. I'm like the most vulnerable person there is in this world. But I want people to know that I struggle and that I stay up at night thinking about student loans, and that I have panic attacks, and that I am not healthy a lot of the times, and that I'm a work in progress. And I want my students to know that, so that they know that like sometimes I'm going to get a sub just so I can watch Emily in Paris. It's not a good show, but I need the night off. But like for me, I want them to know that about me.
Right.
Oh my God. It's just such a trash show. But I want them to know that about me, so that they are prepared when they move up in this business, that it's super important to be a human. You can't be a comedy robot.
You're not crying. Don't start crying, Joe, because then I'm going to start crying.
I almost made it through one show.
But like the one thing that has made me the most angry, and I've tried to like fight against for so long, has been people have been like, you're the hardest working woman in improv. And it's the most infuriating thing that people think they're complimenting me on. But I'm like, why is it so much easier for other people? Why do I have to work so hard? But the hard work pays off. So it's like, well, I guess you're right. But also like, fuck you. I'm the one giving you a spot on the stage. So I just hope that when someone writes a book about me, they said I was nice to older people. Oh God.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I have watched you from afar. We've only crossed paths a little bit, which is crazy to me, especially because we have the same name. So it must be that you can't have two Stacys in the same improv festival. I mean, we have both been exactly or at the same festivals, but all opposite years.
Yeah.
But, I've been aware of you from afar and seen you hop around. And I hope that this is like just the best golden age for you, where like people had the best intentions and brought you in to do these things and use these skills you have when they weren't really ready or really weren't prepared, or the culture wasn't there. Right. And like, I feel like I just have such a good feeling about your presence there and the support you have, and people like Biddy and Andrew and Boom and your cast, and like just where the world is. Like, you two are crushing it, and we're all sending you love and support. And seriously, call me anytime when you just want to fucking unleash.
I'm moving to Portland, baby. I gotta move somewhere after this. Yeah. Someone's got to take me in.
Well, talk to Joe, talk to Elise, talk to me. I think that's the plan. I think everybody is going to end up in Portland. That's my goal. Anyway, my goal and my dream is eventually you'll end up here. So totally welcome. And our musical, we got a lot of passionate people wanting to do more musical stuff.
Sure.
I love you. And she's coming to Amsterdam, and I'm gonna hug her so hard until she explodes.
Yeah, she is so excited. She is. I was like, I think you've used all your vacation. We don't have vacation. Like, we don't have any. Like, it's not a thing. And like, I can't go to Amsterdam. Sorry. She's so excited. I just don't want it to end. So that means we have to do it again someday. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Joe and Elise, as usual. Thank you, Biddy and Stacey.
Thank you so much.
So sweet.
I love all of you. I love all of you so much.
Take care of yourselves. Make sure you take care of yourselves.